This is a Sports Catastrophe production.
Hey there, how there, ho there, it's Jeff Cutter welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe Birthday Boy. And the birthday boy for today, August 22nd, is an NFL head coaching icon who did it for 19 seasons. He was predominantly known as the head coach of the Giants in the 1980s, the Pats in the mid-90s, and then the Jets in the late 90s, and then the Cowboys in the 2000s. He's known as the Big Tuna. He's the only NFL coach in history to lead 4 franchises to the playoffs and 3 to a conference championship game. Or Final Four, if you will. He helped the Giants get back to respectability. He helped the Pats get back to respectability when he came in. The Jets as well. And then the Cowboys, maybe. Although, he is an icon. He's still the vice president of football operations for the Dolphins. He's 82 years old. He's Bill Parcells. Bill Parcells was born in England, New Jersey. His father actually played quarterback at Georgetown and worked for the FBI before becoming a lawyer for Uniroyal. Prior to his sophomore season, he went to another school and all that. So, anyway. So, Bill Parcells' real name is not Bill, it's Dwayne Parcells. For some strange reason, he was born Dwayne, and then he liked the name Bill. Anyway, he was large for his age at 6'2". But he was a stand-up for football, baseball, and basketball. Parcells went to Colgate University, not named for the toothpaste. As a freshman, the Phillies offered him a baseball contract, but his father didn't approve of that and wanted him to study law, so Parcells had to decline the offer. He then went to Wichita, now called Wichita State, and was linebacker and got a phys ed degree. He was known as the Big Tuna. His actual nickname was Tuner for some strange reasons. So, anyway. Detroit gave him a chance as an offensive lineman 7th round of the draft. But he was released by the team because he reportedly quit the team after a hot morning workout. So yeah, he was drafted in the 7th round of the 1964 NFL draft. So he was considering either law school or a franchise owner for Pizza Hut. But he chose a career in football and became an assistant coach for Hastings and went back to his alma mater, Wichita State, for 1 year in 65. Then he was the Army assistant coach from 66 to 69. Then Florida State, 70 to 72. Vanderbilt, 73 and 74. Texas Tech, 75 to 77. The Air Force Academy gave him a chance to be the head coach, and he did it for 1 season. Parcells actually had a longtime friendship with Bob Knight, legendary basketball coach. Because Parcells was a part-time assistant coach for Bob Knight in 1967 when Knight was the head coach in the Army. So anyway, the Giants took notice, and he got his NFL job as a defensive coordinator. And he was going to be that. But he actually resigned and took a job with a land development company in Colorado for some strange reason. He was dissatisfied and then went back to football in 1980 as the linebacker coach for the Patriots. The next season, the Giants gave him a chance to be an assistant coach, and Parcells accepted the offer and kept the offer. As defensive coordinator and linebackers coach, he changed the team's 4-3 defense to a 3-4 system, meaning that there would be 3 defensive linemen on the line and 4 linebackers. So Parcells would become the Giants head coach when Ray Perkins would jump at the chance to go back to the University of Alabama to be their head coach and athletic director, mostly because Bear Bryant had retired and sadly died a month after his retirement. Parcells took over in 1983. The Giants were a disaster, and he decided to bench Phil Simms for Scott Brunner. Parcells was almost canned as head coach as the Giants decided to offer the job to University of Miami head coach Schnellenberger. But Schnellenberger decided to stay at the U, as they call themselves, and Parcells remained as head coach. Parcells learned his lesson and made Sims the starter again. And in the next 2 years, they were amazing. They got 9 wins and 10 wins. And the first time that the Giants went to back-to-back playoffs since the 60s. And in 1986, his creme de la creme was leading the Giants to the Super Bowl. They were 14-2, the best season in team history. Won the defensive title. I mean, dude, I think you're going to win a division title. You're 14-2. The 3-4 defense was huge because they had 4 great linebackers. Lawrence Taylor, Carl Banks, Harry Carson, and Leonard Marshall all playing for them. And under Phil Simms' direction, they only gave up 3 points in their 2 playoff games with the Niners and Redskins, even though they crushed San Fran and Montana 49-3, which was huge. And then in Super Bowl 21, they took care of Denver and John Elway 39-20. In fact, he's the first coach at the end of a Super Bowl to be doused with Gatorade, which was a Super Bowl tradition. Some say Ditka had been doused a year earlier. But nope, that's not what it was. Anyway, Atlanta wanted him to be the head coach and GM, but he didn't take the bait. The Giants would somehow, in 1990, go to Super Bowl 25. They were 13-3. They actually started 10-0, but Phil Simms got hurt, so they had to use Jeff Hostetler at backup, at quarterback. With Hostetler and veteran running back Otis Anderson, the Giants were not really that picked well. After beating the Bears in the divisional playoff, they had to face the 49ers in San Francisco in the NFC title game, in which the 2-time defending Super Bowl champs were looking to get to the 3rd straight chance and probably go get the three-peat that no NFL team has ever done. It was a back-and-forth affair. The Giants, Leonard Marshall knocked Joe Montana out of the game, and then a costly Roger Craig fumble meant the Giants had a late field goal by Matt Barr. And on his 5th field goal of the day, the Giants won 15-13. The Giants would face the Bills. And everyone thought Buffalo was going to win because of their high-power offense. After all, they did crush the Raiders 51-3 in the AFC title game. However, the Giants, using Bill Belichick's ball control method, as in keeping the ball and running the ball, just keep the ball away from Buffalo's offense. It worked, and the Giants won 2019 thanks to Scott Norwood's wide right field goal. But health was not on Parcells' mind, and Parcells decided to retire. The Giants had won 2 Super Bowls under him. It was amazing what he could do. Parcells then became a commentator for NBC Sports. And Tampa Bay actually was going to make him head coach. However, Parcells didn't think the situation was right. And Hugh Coverhouse, still owner of the Bucks and basically known for his penny pitching, said, "I've been jilted at the altar." Green Bay gave him a chance to be the new head coach in '92, but he said he needed open heart surgery. And he did. So Mike Holmgren became the head coach of the Packers. Ironically, those 2 guys would butt heads in Super Bowl 31. So anyway, Parcells would continue to coach for New England this time. So anyway, New England were fresh off 2 terrible years that they just sucked horribly. But within 2 years, the Pats were respectable. In the 94 season, they went to their first playoff game in 8 years, which was pretty impressive. In 96, he got the Pats to the division title and the AFC title. Unfortunately, though, the Packers would get them 35-21, and guess who was head coach? Mike Holmgren. So anyway, Parcells left the Patriots because there was problems with Robert Kraft, the owner, and all that. Parcells was the GM, but Kraft would not allow him enough input in player personnel decisions. And Parcells famously stated upon his departure, "They want you to cook the dinner. At least the author should let you shop for some of the groceries." There were rumors that quote was because in the 96 draft, Parcells wanted to draft Tony Brackens with the first round pick, but was vetoed by Kraft, so they went with Terry Glenn at wide receiver. It worked out. Brackens was okay for Jacksonville. Parcells wanted to leave New England, but his contract did not allow him to coach anywhere else. The Giants were close to getting Parcells back. However, they went with Jim Fassel. The Jets sought Parcells as a head coach and all that. Because the Jets were just terrible. They were 4-28 under Rich Kotite. Why that guy never was fired after like 5 or 6 games, I don't know. But anyway, to circumvent that, the Jets decided to hire Bill Belichick, who was the assistant to Parcells, as the Jets coach, and then hired Parcells in an advisory role. New England threatened legal action. However, there was a move. Commissioner Paul Tagliabue decided to broker a deal. New England would release Parcells from his contract, and the Jets would give New England a 3rd and 4th round pick that year, a 2nd round pick the next year, and a 1st round pick the year after that. And the Jets did so. And Leon Hess, the owner, said that Bill Parcells could have complete control over football operations. That's what Parcells wanted. And the Jets, who were 1-15 before Parcells arrived, somehow, in some way, made one of the greatest turnarounds in NFL history, winning 8 more games than they did the previous year, going 9-7. They did miss the playoffs, but hey, they were above 500. In 98, the Jets crushed expectations by winning 12 games that year. 2nd best in the conference. And they looked good. Unfortunately, they would lose in Denver in the AFC title game. And the Jets had a lot of expectations. All that. However, in the Jets' home opener, Finney Testaverde was hurt, and the Jets went down from there. The Jets would be 8-8. Parcells decided not to coach again, and remained with the Jets 1 year as general manager. He was actually the only Jets coach to leave the team with a winning record after coaching at least 2 seasons. But the Cowboys offered Bill Parcells a contract in 2003, so Parcells wasn't out too long, but 4 years. Anyway, Parcells would mandate on his arrival that the Cowboys star on the helmet was a privilege, not a right. They need to earn the star and all that. And all the logos would be removed from rookie helmets and all that. Since then, all drafted and undrafted free agent rookies that report to the Cowboys must officially make the roster before having the star logo permanently placed on their helmet. Anyway, it is a popular Twitter hashtag. Meanwhile, in his first season with the Cowboys, he got them to the playoffs, winning 10 games, losing in the first round to Carolina, but still it looked good, and became the first head coach to get 4 teams to the playoffs. That being the Giants, the Pats, the Jets, and the Cowboys. 2004, it was turmoil. Quincy Carter had drug use problems and was terminated for Finney Testaverde, which was huge and all that. But unfortunately, as a starter, he couldn't do so well. The Cowboys bobbled and went to 6-10. Fortunately, though, their defense helped a lot of things and all that. Jerry Jones would add people like Scott Fujita and Jason Ferguson to help, so the defense looked good. The Cowboys picked up Julius Jones in the draft and Drew Bledsoe for free agency. So again, a former quarterback under Parcells would come to a team Parcells was coaching. Parcells would also sign Aaron Glenn, Keyshawn Johnson, Richie Anderson, who he also coached back in the day. The Cowboys would only win 9 games and missed the playoffs by 1. In 2006, they signed T.O. from Philadelphia, which was shocking and all that. And Keyshawn Johnson was given the boot and went to Carolina. Parcells never referred to Owens by name, only as the player. He would look pretty good at all that. And by week 7 of the 2006 season, Parcells decided to get rid of Bledsoe and put Tony Romo in at quarterback. Unfortunately, though, Dallas lost on the final day of the season and lost the NFC East. They did make the playoffs as the 5 seed, going into Seattle and having a chance to beat Seattle But unfortunately, Tony Romo botched the hold of the field goal attempt by Grammatica. And Romo tried to run it in, but was stopped by Jordan Babineau. Parcells ended up being 34-30 with no playoff wins. He was basically a dead duck. Tony Romo did develop to be a good quarterback, and Parcells helped him. Parcells would have entered the final year of his contract. But, he was unsure about that. He decided to retire in January 2007. Some say Parcells was holding out for money. I don't know. Then he became a studio analyst for ESPN. So anyway, ESPN knew what they did. However, Miami decided to tell him he would be the new executive vice president of football operations. Signed a 4-year deal. Atlanta had a chance. But Parcells had the discussion with Miami and turned it down. Atlanta's dropped down. In his first season, he decided to fire Cam Cameron as head coach, general manager Randy Mueller, and some assistant coaches. After all, Miami went 1-15. He brought in Tony Soprano, not Soprano, Soprano, as head coach, and Jeff Ireland to be GM. And in the 2008 draft, they took Jake Long with the number 1 overall pick. They shockingly decided to get rid of Zach Thomas to Dallas and Jason Taylor to Washington. Miami would sign Chad Pennington, who was with the Jets, but after Brett Favre announced he wanted to come back and play football, the Jets got him, and they decided to get rid of Pennington. The joke was on the Jets, as the final week of the 2008 season saw the Dolphins face the Jets in an important 4 o'clock game. The Pats won earlier, meaning that if the Dolphins beat the Jets, the Dolphins would win the AFC East, and the Pats, based on tiebreakers, wouldn't win the division and wouldn't even make the playoffs, despite being 11-5. If the Jets won, then the Pats would have won the division, and I believe the Jets would have been a wildcard team. But shockingly enough, Pennington and the Dolphins won the game and took down the Jets, picking up a 10-game improvement. After going 1-15, they went 11-5, making them the second team alongside the 99 Indianapolis Colts to get the turnaround by 10 games or more. Unfortunately, the Ravens would get them in the playoffs 27-9. Parcells would leave the Dolphins in 2010 to take an advisory role with the Browns, by 2014. Anyway, he's given the Browns some advice, but not too much. So anyway, in college, 1 year with Air Force, he was 3-8. In the NFL, he was 172, 130-1. In the regular season, 11-8. In the postseason, including 2 Super Bowl titles in both 86 and 90. So yeah, he has a massive coaching tree and all that. But the New York Giants, New England Patriots, New York Jets, and the Dallas Cowboys, to an effect, all owe a bit of gratitude to Bill Parcells, because he helped them get out of terrible slumps and become respectable. Even for a few seasons. It still worked, didn't it? Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do